Hi guys, Rob here, back in for a video, and it's another edition of Power Ranger Mondays. As the title suggests, we're going to be looking at this guy. Not this guy in particular, the Green Ranger, but the guy who played the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank. His importance to the entire Power Ranger mythos, and how he solely saved the franchise. Right, so we all know Jason David Frank being the legendary Ranger that he is today, being like, the name that you associate with Power Rangers the most. We're going to talk about his history, his life as a Power Ranger, and what he means to the franchise as a person and to us as a fans. As we all know, Jason David Frank was cast as Tommy Oliver, and he smashed into the screen at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1 as the evil Green Ranger, in the what I like to think as the best story arc ever in the history of Power Rangers, the Green with Evil story arc. You gotta think, like, this happened halfway through Season 1. The Power Rangers had established themselves now. They were a team of good guys battling monsters with their Zords and defeating evil. What do you do when you come across one of your own? Do you fight them? Do you not fight them? What do you do? You don't want to hurt them, but you gotta defend yourself. So what do you do? That story was absolutely fantastic. How they didn't know who it was, how they had to do it, and it was great. And when they found out it was Tommy, and they were like, "Whoa, no way! Oh my God, there's this new kid, and he's the evil Green Ranger." There were so many emotions going through that story arc, especially when you had, the bond that Tommy and Jason had when they were rivals at the start of the arc, and they were best friends, and then the everlasting story of Tommy and Kimberly. Would they? Did they? Would they ever? That was one. As a child of 5-6 years old, you're watching Power Rangers. I would say this would be one of the first dramas, love stories that as a child you would get invested in. Was between Tommy and Kimberly. So you're already got good points there where you are focusing on a relationship, and you're projecting that to young minds, because it just brought a new thing into the Power Ranger programming. Was a love story, something you didn't really get in a child's TV show back then. But we all know how the story arc ended. Tommy was saved, the Sword of Darkness was destroyed, the curse was broken, and the Green Ranger joined the team. Hooray! And the Green Ranger was the coolest Power Ranger ever. He was different to the rest of them. He had a shield, he had his own Megazord, unlike the rest of the team, whose individual Zords had to combine. He had his own Megazord. Yes, I know you could create the Mega Dragon Zord, or Dragon Zord in fighting mode, but Mega Dragon Zord sounds way better. And that was magnificent. But after a few episodes, we saw less and less and less of the Green Ranger. This wasn't because that he wasn't popular enough. He was popular. He was this world. His merchandise couldn't sell quick enough. It's because in the Sentai, after a few episodes after their Green with Evil arc, he died. The Green Ranger character, who's called Burai, was the brother of Geki, who is Japanese Jason, the Red Ranger, and he died in the series very shortly after he became good. So that's why you kept on having these episodes where Tom would come back and he would go away, and he'd come back and go away, and you had the episodes like the Green Candle, Green No More, stuff like that, because they had no stock footage. They had the repetitive footage of the Green Ranger, and you couldn't constantly show the same footage over again, but give him different lines. So they had to try and write the Green Ranger out, and this is how they did it, by having very few episodes of the Green Ranger, which sucks because to this day the Green Ranger to me is still the greatest Power Ranger ever. So that's why you never saw a lot of the Green Ranger after that, is because in the Sentai they had no Green Ranger, because again he died. So if you've got no stock footage and you don't want to make your own footage, you got to write them out, which they did. Come the beginning, I think, of Season 2. Now after that, after the Green Ranger had gone, Tommy had gone, that was it. You know, Jason David Frank was not supposed to come back. He was not supposed to be the guy you know him as today. When the White Ranger debuted, he was actually supposed to be played by a guy called Brad Hawkins. And Jason David Frank had actually signed a contract to become a character on VR Troopers, believe it or not. But there was such a demand for Tommy to come back. We want Tommy. We want Tommy. Like, you know, the Tommy merchandise had sold constantly. Everyone, you know, he was the most popular Power Ranger. And, you know, what could Saban do? You know, Jason David Frank is on VR Troopers. They got this guy called Brad Hawkins in the wings. Like, yeah, who's going to become the White Ranger? What would they do? So what they did, they had the two guys, that's Jason David Frank and Brad Hawkins, they had them swap roles. So Brad Hawkins went over to VR Troopers, and he played the role of Ryan Steele in VR Troopers, and then Jason David Frank, he came back as the White Ranger. Now, when everyone remembers the episodes White Light, part 1 and 2, obviously the scene that everyone remembers in that scene is Kimberly fainting. Ironically. So when you see the everyone saw the White Ranger. You're like, oh my god, it's Tommy. Tommy's back. It's amazing. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, Tommy's back. Great, cool. And again, the most popular Ranger from that point on was the White Ranger. So, you know, ratings went up because Jason David Frank had returned. And then obviously you got to the part where, you know, he debuted. And you get to the part where Zordon's like, Tommy, you have now been entrusted with the power of the White Ranger. You will now lead the Power Rangers. And then you just got like Austin St. John in the back here. Like Jason, he's just like, oh yeah, cool, yeah. Good. Lead the Power Rangers. And to me, I think that's just where the Austin St. John, Jason David Frank feud just began. You know, because it's not, you know, it's not uncommon news that those two really don't get on in real life, which is a shame. But back to Jason David Frank. So we go through the whole season 2 with, you know, Tommy's White Ranger, and we hit season 3, and this is where you know, ratings in Power Rangers starts to drop, because like I said with the Green Ranger, and they had to get rid of him because of stock footage. The same came with season 3 of Mighty Morphin. They had no stock footage because, like, Zoo Ranger, which was the Sentai for Mighty Morphin, it ran for 1 season. They constantly had stock footage for 3 seasons worth of stuff. So, you know, Saban were making their own footage now, and it was costing them lots of money, and, you know, they just didn't know what to do with it. So that's why they, after season 3 ended, they went to Power Ranger Zeo, which was, I believe, the Sentai series O Ranger. So, you know, all the characters shifted and went on to Zeo. Karen Ashley did not want to continue playing part of the Power Rangers, so she gave up that part and gave it to Tanya, who was played by Nikia Bryce, I believe. And Jason David Frank finally got the role as the Red Ranger. Again, Red, cool. So Tommy is officially a Red Ranger. He has now solidified his place in Ranger history as the leader, as the Red Ranger, which is cool. So we go through Zeo. Ratings started to pick up a little, you know, because they had fresh footage, had fresh costumes, fresh footage, fresh swords. It was great. It was a great thing going forward. And, you know, you got the return of Austin St. John as the Gold Ranger. Happy Ranger fans. So then they go through the season of Zeo. And then we get to Turbo. Yes, Turbo. Power Rangers Turbo was a diabolical series within itself. So, there we go. Tommy again, Red Ranger. Happy days. But here's a little fact you didn't know. Power Rangers Turbo, Super Sentai had made this series based on Power Rangers, and it was supposed to be a spoof series based on Power Rangers and how badly acting it was. But this is why it was voted the worst Power Ranger series of all time, because it wasn't taken seriously in Japan. So obviously, if something's not taken seriously in Japan and you try and adapt it to America and the way that the Power Rangers did their stuff with their series, it was just going to be a catastrophe. A little fact you didn't know there. So at midway through season of Turbo, as everyone knows, the cast had changed. We had lost Johnny Young Bosch, we had lost Nikia Bryce, we had lost Catherine Sutherland, we had lost Jason David Frank. And we had got new guys in Cassie, Ashley, Carlos, and TJ. Again, another known fact. The guys, like Jason David Frank and the Wish crew, they found out they were getting fired by reading the advert for new Rangers in the paper. I actually found that out at PowerCon back in February. Nikia Bryce was just like, she was telling us a story on how they left the series, and they were like, we just found adverts in the paper having our jobs advertised, and we were like, what? What's going on? So that's why they left. Now, between Turbo and Wild Force, that's 7 years. We had Turbo, Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, and Wild Force. 6 series. In that six years, Power Rangers had started to decline in ratings, and this is what would later lead to the buyout by Disney. But in that 6 years, Power Rangers was doing okay. It wasn't the best, but you know, the characters, they didn't have that feel. They didn't have that oh wow thing. But we got to see the return of Jason David Frank in the 10th anniversary special in Power Rangers Wild Force episode called Forever Red, where every single Red Ranger from the past 10 years had returned, including Austin St. John. Now, obviously, in this episode, Tommy would take back the mantle of Power Rangers, of Zero Ranger 5 for Red. And it was an amazing episode. I watched the episode purely because of the fact that I heard that, you know, Jason David Frank was in it. And a lot of the old school Ranger fans looked for it, just to see, like, not only, you know, Jason David Frank return Zero Ranger 5, but to see Austin St. John return as Mighty Morphin Red. And it was a fantastic episode. It was phenomenal. It was everything you wanted from a Power Ranger team up. It was full of nostalgia. It was absolutely out of this world. And, you know, it was, like I said, it was amazing. Now, that episode has been voted the best episode of Power Rangers in its 20-year history. And I would recommend anyone to go and watch it. But that episode, like I said, spiked up in ratings. Everyone was looking for it online, because obviously old fans and new fans. And obviously, Wild Force being the last series owned by Saban, Disney recognized this, and they were thinking, oh, well, what's going on here? Why is this episode spiked? Obviously, following Wild Force, we saw Ninja Storm, which was the debut season for the Disney era. Ninja Storm was a cool series, but again, it wasn't great. It was missing something. So the following year, we had Power Rangers Dino Thunder, and this was the return of Jason David Frank taking up a fourth color in the Ranger mythos. He would now become the fourth Ranger, part of the Dino Thunder legacy, as the Black Ranger. So now we've gone from green to white to red to black. If Jason David Frank takes up another color in the Power Rangers future, he could create his own team. Just saying. So yeah, Jason David Frank comes back in Dino Thunder, a full-on series. In this role, we find out that in the space between 1995 or 97, even I think 96, 97, when he left Turbo in 2004, Dino Thunder, we learn that Tommy has gone to college. He has a PhD in archaeology, and he now is a teacher. Great work, Tommy. Through the entire series, you find out that there are a lot of Easter eggs. Obviously, the first one being an episode titled History, where the new team go into Dr. O's computer and they learn about the history of the Power Rangers. Obviously, it being its 12th season at this time, you see literally all the footage from back to 1993 to now, which is a great episode. And then in another episode called Fighting Spirit, you see Dr. Oliver, Tommy, I'm not going to call him Dr. Oliver. You see Tommy, he gets knocked into a coma, and he has to battle his three previous powers. That's Mighty Morphin Green, Mighty Morphin White, and Zero Ranger 5 Red. To prove to the power that he is worthy of a fourth colour. And you know what? He is. Of course he is. He's Jason David Frank. Now, again, when I heard this happen, when a lot of fans heard this happen, Dino Thunder on, ratings up. You know, life was sparked again into the Power Rangers series, and it was selling. It was going up and up. People were buying toys. It was great because, again, people wanted Jason David Frank. And again, it was just a typical Power Rangers series. Bad guy, morph, kill bad guy goes giant, Megazords, kill bad guy. Happy days. But, you know, there was constant references to him being called Tommy, you know, to his hair being cut. It was just a great series overall. And, you know, you can never get enough of the classic Tommy. Zig, hiya! And it was great. And again, that series is what got my love again back into Power Rangers in the Disney era. I then later watched the series after, which is SPD, which is great, and then Mystic Force, which is great, and then Operation Overdrive, which is shit. So Jason David Frank has now left again after Dino Thunder, and ratings have spiked, and Disney are happy. So again, after that, you know, we get to RPM, and Disney have now sold the rights back to Saban because ratings went down. Saban then give it to Nickelodeon. They have Samurai, they have Megaforce, then they have Super Megaforce. Now, in my previous video, I told you that the Legendary Battle was announced 2 years previous to its actual debut. And then we were also told of the returning Rangers. One of the returning Rangers would be Jason David Frank in his Mighty Morphin Green gear. Now, as soon as that was announced, ratings up! Everyone wanted to watch Power Rangers again. Everyone wanted to see the Green Ranger return. It was massive. There was posters, there was merchandise, there was talk everywhere about it. Obviously, it being the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers itself, and because the fact that Jason David Frank had returned, but not returned as just anyone. He returned as his original colour, his green, and that was absolutely phenomenal. And you know, I marked out when, you know, we finally saw the finale. It wasn't a great finale, but just to see JDF in the green suit was enough to just go, whoa, oh wow. You know what I'm saying? This is my argument as to why Jason David Frank is the greatest Power Ranger of all time, but also because if it wasn't for Jason David Frank, Power Rangers would not be around today. And I solely believe that. Jason David Frank sells the most merchandise. He constantly has San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. For the past 3 years, every Power Ranger bit of merchandise, exclusives, has been around the Jason David Frank character. Last year, it was the Golden Dragon Dagger, and it was the Tommy Oliver Ranger Keys. This year, it is the Black Legacy Saber. It is the Tommy Oliver Dino Chargers. You see where I'm going with this? Everything about Tommy Oliver sells. Everything about Jason David Frank sells. And if it wasn't for Jason David Frank, I truly believe that Power Rangers as we know them today would not be here. And so, you know, Saban or, you know, Shuki Levi, whoever made that decision to bring Jason David Frank back as the White Ranger and not have, what's his name, Brad Hawkins do it, you deserve a round of applause, because the money you've made from Jason David Frank and the stardom, the absolute fandom that Jason David Frank has today is because of you. So thank you. And, you know, come 10 years time or 8 years time, when they do a 30th anniversary, if JDF wants to come around, if he wants to appear in it. You know, appear in any colour you want, whether it's green, white, red, black. I don't care. No, you know what? Bring JDF back for another series. Give him a fifth colour. Do you know what? Give JDF his own series where his powers get split into 5 different people, and he has, you know, Tommy Force, Oliver Force. There we go. I don't care. You know, JDF round the world is known as the Power Ranger. You know. No one else matters but JDF. If you go to 21, yeah, do you know who Jason David Frank is? You go, he's a Power Ranger. Yeah. Do you know Austin St. John is? No. some of the signing in UFC, because that's the imprint that JDF leaves on people. The Green Ranger today is in pop culture is as big as Spider-Man. No, maybe not Spider-Man, but he's up there, and I know you agree with me because you're watching this video. But especially with the hype around the new movie from Lionsgate, everyone wants to see like a cameo from JDF. Everyone wants to see a cameo from like the original crew, and I hope it does happen. So I hope you enjoyed that video and you got a good insight into how Jason David Frank here, he saved the franchise of Power Rangers. And I hope you join me again next week for another Power Ranger Monday. Keep revelising those pages, and may the power protect you. What's that? My good pal Green Ranger here just wants to say, wait, you're evil.